The silent invasion. The transmission came through broken and desperate, cutting across the vast emptiness of space like a wounded animal's cry. Static crackled between words as Governor Marcus Chen's voice strained with unmistakable terror. "This is Novus Prime Colony requesting immediate assistance. They've breached our outer defenses. The Vrex aren't what we thought. They're not here for peace. They're systematically exterminating everyone. Our weapons barely scratch them. Please, anyone receiving this, they're coming for Earth next. Don't trust their." The message ended with the sound of shattering glass and an inhuman shriek that made Commander Elena Rice's skin crawl. She stood frozen on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, Earth's most advanced warship, as the final moments of Novus Prime's leadership played out through the ship's communication system. "That's the third colony we've lost in 2 months," Admiral Hassan said grimly, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. "But the first where we've received any kind of warning." Elena studied the tactical display where Novus Prime, humanity's furthest and most promising colony, blinked red. Just days ago, it had been humanity's crowning achievement, a self-sustaining settlement of 30,000 souls on the edge of explored space. Now it was silent. "Replay the sensor data from the automated defense network," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the horror constricting her chest. Lieutenant Park nodded, fingers dancing across the console. The main view screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from the colony's orbital defense platforms. The sleek, obsidian ships of the Vrex flotilla hung motionless above Novus Prime like predators assessing wounded prey. There was something deeply unsettling about their design, organic yet mechanical, vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They approached under a flag of peace, Park said, his voice tight. Governor Chen welcomed their delegation, just like the protocol suggested. Everything we know about the Vrex indicated they were a diplomatic species. "Everything we thought we knew," Elena corrected, watching as the footage showed the largest Vrex vessel suddenly opening like a blooming flower, disgorging hundreds of smaller craft that descended toward the colony. "Look at their formation. That's not a diplomatic approach. That's a tactical insertion pattern." Hassan nodded grimly. "They studied us, learned our protocols, our expectations. We've been receiving their transmissions for years. Cultural exchanges, technological proposals. All of it was reconnaissance." The footage continued, showing the smaller Vrex crafts landing in precise formation around the colony's main habitation dome. What happened next made several junior officers turn away. The Vrex emerged, tall, spindly creatures with iridescent exoskeletons that shifted color with each movement. They carried what appeared to be ceremonial staffs, until those staffs unfolded into weapons that unleashed arcs of blue energy, cutting through the colony's defenders like paper. "They knew exactly where to hit us," Elena whispered, watching as the Vrex methodically disabled power stations, communication arrays, and defense emplacements in a perfectly coordinated attack. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned down to the second. Admiral Hassan's jaw tightened. "The question is, what do they want?" 3 colonies obliterated, no attempts at resource collection, no occupation, just extermination. Elena's eyes narrowed as she studied the final moments of footage, before the defense platforms themselves were destroyed. "Sir, request permission to take the Thunderbolt to Novus Prime." Hassan looked at her sharply. "Denied. The Thunderbolt is being recalled to Earth. High Command is consolidating our forces for a defensive position. Whatever these things are, they're coming for the core worlds next." Elena stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "With respect, Admiral, if we don't understand what we're fighting, Earth's defenses won't matter. The Thunderbolt was designed for reconnaissance and rapid response. We can be at Novus Prime in 3 jumps. We might find survivors, intelligence, anything that gives us an edge. And if the Vrex are still there, then we observe and retreat. The Thunderbolt's stealth systems are the best in the fleet. They won't even know we're there. Hassan studied her for a long moment, conflict evident in his eyes. High Command would have my stars for this. If the Vrex reach Earth, sir, rank will be the least of our concerns. The Admiral rubbed his temples, then gave a short nod. 48 hours, Commander. You go in, gather what intelligence you can, and get out. No heroics. Understood, sir. As the Admiral left the bridge, Alina turned to her crew. Lieutenant Park, plot a course for Novus Prime. Lieutenant Rodriguez, I want full diagnostics on our stealth systems. Chief Okafor, prepare your Marines for a potential ground insertion. If there's anyone left alive down there, we're bringing them home. The bridge crew snapped to their tasks with practiced efficiency, but Alina could sense their unease. They had all seen the footage. They all knew what awaited them at Novus Prime. Alina made her way to her personal quarters, needing a moment of privacy before the mission began. The small room was Spartan, with only a few personal effects, a photograph of her parents, a small potted succulent, and a worn copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War. She picked up the book, a graduation gift from her academy mentor. Know your enemy, she murmured, running her finger along the spine. The problem was, humanity knew nothing about the Vrex. Not really. 5 years of seemingly peaceful communication, cultural exchanges, even preliminary trade negotiations. All of it had been a facade, a way for the aliens to study humanity's weaknesses. The question that haunted Alina wasn't just what the Vrex wanted, but why they had waited so long to strike. Her tablet chimed with an incoming message, the preliminary mission brief from intelligence. Alina skimmed through it, but there was little new information. The Vrex had appeared in human space 7 years ago, broadcasting gratings in perfect English. Their technology appeared advanced, but not overwhelmingly so. Their physiology was unlike anything in Earth's evolutionary history. Silicon-based life forms with exoskeletons that contained photosynthetic cells, allowing them to absorb energy directly from sunlight. Most disturbing was the final paragraph of the report. Analysis of attack patterns at the 2 previous colonies suggested the Vrex had specifically targeted civilians first, particularly children and medical facilities. Not the actions of a species seeking resources or territory, but something far more sinister. A soft knock at her door pulled Alina from her dark thoughts. Enter. Chief Okafor stepped inside, his massive frame nearly filling the doorway. The Marine's face was set in its usual stoic expression, but Alina had served with him long enough to see the tension in his shoulders. My team is ready, Commander, he said. But I thought you should see this first. He handed her a data chip, which she inserted into her tablet. A new video began playing. Personal footage from someone's implanted ocular camera on Novus Prime. The timestamp showed it was recorded just hours before the colony fell silent. The footage showed a Vrex delegation in what appeared to be the colony's central plaza. Unlike the warriors that would later attack, these Vrex wore elaborate ceremonial garments draped over their exoskeletons. One stepped forward, towering over Governor Chen. "We bring greetings from the collective," the alien said, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that seemed almost musical. "We have observed your kind with great interest. Your adaptation, your resilience in hostile environments. It is most impressive." Chen smiled diplomatically. "We appreciate your kind words. Humanity has always prided itself on our ability to overcome challenges." The Vrex's exoskeleton shifted colors, flowing from deep blue to a vibrant purple. "Indeed, it is precisely this quality that brings us here today." What happened next made Alina's blood run cold. The Vrex reached out with one elongated limb, gently touching Chen's forehead. "Your species carries something we have sought for millennia. A genetic sequence, the adaptation gene, as our scientists call it. It allows your kind to survive in environments that would kill most carbon-based life." Chen stepped back slightly, clearly uncomfortable with the alien's touch. "I'm not a biologist, but yes, humans are adaptable. We've colonized worlds with gravity and atmospheric conditions quite different from Earth." The Vrex's colors shifted again. this time to a deep crimson. "You misunderstand, Governor. We are not here to study this trait." The alien's posture changed subtly, becoming more rigid, more threatening. "We are here to harvest it." The footage abruptly cut out, leaving Elena staring at a blank screen. "That was recovered from a damaged satellite relay," Okafor explained. "It was transmitted just before the main attack began." Elena set the tablet down, her mind racing. "They're not just killing us. They want something from us, something in our DNA." "Makes sense in a twisted way," Okafor said. "Silicon-based life forms would have evolved under completely different conditions than carbon-based life. Our ability to adapt to different environments would be valuable." "And explains the targeting of medical facilities," Elena added grimly. "They're collecting specimens." The ship's intercom chimed. "Commander, we're ready for jump sequence," Lieutenant Park's voice announced. Elena stood, straightening her uniform. "We're heading into something worse than a battle. Chief, we're heading into a harvest." Okafor's expression hardened. "Then let's make sure they understand that humans aren't crops to be harvested. We're the worst kind of weeds, the kind that fights back." As Elena returned to the bridge, she felt the familiar lurch as the Thunderbolt's jump engines engaged. The view screen showed the fabric of space-time folding around them, stars stretching into lines of light as the ship accelerated beyond conventional physics. They were heading toward a slaughterhouse. But unlike the colonists of Novus Prime, the Thunderbolt was bringing something the Vrex hadn't counted on: humanity's wrath, forged into steel and fire, and a desperate determination to ensure that their species' future would not end in alien laboratories. The ship jumped into the void, carrying humanity's best hope against an enemy that saw them not as rivals or even prey, but as raw material to be harvested and discarded. An enemy that was about to learn why humanity had survived every catastrophe its homeworld had thrown at it. The Vrex had studied human culture, human technology, human biology. But they had missed the most important lesson of human history. When backed into a corner, humans didn't simply fight to survive. They fought to win, no matter the cost. Steel and fire. The UES Thunderbolt emerged from its final jump with systems running silent, a ghost ship slipping into the Novus Prime system with only minimal thrusters guiding its approach. On the bridge, Commander Elena Reyes stood with hands clasped behind her back, her face illuminated by the soft glow of tactical displays as she surveyed what remained of humanity's once proud colony. "My God," Lieutenant Rodriguez whispered, breaking the stunned silence that had fallen over the bridge. The colony was unrecognizable. Where once stood gleaming habitation domes and research facilities, now only twisted metal and shattered glass remained. The orbital platforms had been reduced to floating debris, creating a morbid ring around the planet. But what truly chilled Elena's blood were the Vrex ships, not departing as they had after previous attacks, but methodically circling the colony like vultures. "They're still here," Park said, his voice tight. 3 days after the attack. Elena narrowed her eyes, studying the aliens' movement patterns. "They're searching for something." Zoom in on the main colony complex. The view screen shifted, magnifying the ruined central dome. Dark figures moved through the wreckage with disturbing precision. Vrex ground forces systematically coming through the ruins, carrying what appeared to be collection devices. "Life signs?" Elena asked. Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console. Faint readings scattered throughout the underground levels. Maybe 40, 50 human signatures. "They're hiding." The emergency bunkers, Elena realized. Some of them made it to the shelters. Chief Okafor stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the tactical display. "The Vrex don't seem to be rushing. They're methodical, taking their time. They don't know about the bunkers, or they haven't prioritized them yet." Elena nodded slowly. "They think they have all the time in the world. No one responds to colony distress calls this quickly, not from this far out in the frontier." "Which means we have surprise on our side," Okafor said, "but not much else. My Marines are ready, Commander, but there are hundreds of those things down there." Elena turned to the science station, where Lieutenant Commander Aisha Kamara was analyzing the sensor data. What have we learned about them? Any weaknesses? Kamara looked up, her dark eyes thoughtful. Their exoskeletons are remarkably durable. That's why conventional weapons had minimal effect. But there's something interesting about their physiology. The photosynthetic cells they use to absorb energy. They operate across a very specific bandwidth of the light spectrum. Meaning what exactly? Elena pressed. Meaning they're highly sensitive to certain wavelengths outside their absorption range. Specifically, they seem to avoid ultraviolet radiation. The few areas of the colony they haven't thoroughly searched are all places exposed to the UV floodlights the colonists used for sterilization procedures. Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Can we exploit that? We have UV laser arrays meant for communications, Park interjected. They could be modified to operate at higher intensity. And the Marine's armor has UV floodlights for operations in potentially contaminated environments. Okafor added. Not weapons, but if what the lieutenant commander is suggesting is true, they could be repurposed. Elena finished. How quickly? 2 hours for the ship's arrays, Park replied. Less for the portable equipment. Elena made her decision. Do it. Lieutenant Rodriguez, keep us in the planet's shadow. I don't want the Vrex detecting our heat signature. Chief, prepare your team for ground insertion. We're going to extract those survivors. As the bridge crew dispersed to their tasks, Elena moved to the tactical station, studying the Vrex ships. Something about their behavior nagged at her. The methodical, almost ritualistic way they moved through the ruins. They're not just collecting samples, she murmured. This is deliberate, purposeful. She pulled up the footage from the colony's final moments, watching again as the Vrex mentioned the adaptation gene. A terrible thought struck her. Lieutenant Commander Kamara, she called. The medical facility. What was Novus Prime researching? Kamara accessed the colony database. Multiple projects. Environmental adaptation studies were their specialty. They were developing methods to accelerate human adaptation to extreme environments. Elena's blood ran cold. That's what they're looking for. Not just random genetic material, specific research. She turned to the communications officer. Contact Earth. Tell them the Vrex aren't randomly attacking colonies. They're targeting specific research facilities. Novus Prime was working on genetic adaptation technologies. The previous colonies had similar projects. You think they're collecting our research, not just our DNA. Kamara said, comprehension dawning on her face. Why reinvent the wheel when you can steal the blueprints? Elena replied grimly. Get that message to High Command immediately. 2 hours later, Elena stood in the Thunderbolt's launch bay, watching as Chief Okafor's Marines made final adjustments to their modified equipment. The standard-issue combat armor now bristled with UV emitters salvaged from throughout the ship. Even their weapons had been retrofitted, with UV laser sights that would project punishing beams of light alongside conventional fire. It's not pretty, Okafor admitted, adjusting a particularly awkward array attached to his shoulder plate. But if the science is right, it should give us an edge. Elena nodded. The plan is simple. We drop in under cover of darkness, using the debris field to mask our approach. The Thunderbolt will position itself behind the largest Vrex vessel and prepare to deploy the modified communication arrays. Once we're on the ground, we locate the survivors and extract them through the maintenance tunnels that run beneath the main colony complex. And if we encounter heavy resistance? Okafor asked. Then we see if our UV theory works, Elena replied, checking her own modified sidearm. And we remind these harvesters that humans aren't just adaptable. We're downright dangerous when cornered. The dropship detached from the Thunderbolt with minimal thrust, drifting more than flying toward the colony's surface. Inside, Elena and 12 Marines sat in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts as they approached what remained of Novus Prime. Touchdown in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. No signs of detection. The ship settled gently among the ruins of what had once been the colony's agricultural dome. As the boarding ramp descended, Alina was struck by the eerie silence. No wind, no wildlife, none of the mechanical hums that signified human habitation, just absolute stillness, broken only by the occasional distant sound of Vrex search parties. "Move out," Okafor whispered. "Standard formation. Lieutenant Miyazaki, take point." They advanced through the ruins, UV sensors scanning for any sign of Vrex biosignatures. The alien's silicon-based biology gave off a distinctive energy pattern that human technology could detect at short range. "Contact." Miyazaki's voice crackled through the comm. 3 Vrex approaching from the north, moving slowly. "Hold position," Alina ordered. "Let's test our theory." The Marines took cover behind collapsed walls and twisted support beams as the alien patrol came into view. 3 Vrex moved with unsettling grace through the rubble, their exoskeletons shifting colors to blend with their surroundings. Each carried what appeared to be a collection device, a transparent cylinder filled with a viscous fluid. "On my mark," Alina breathed. "UV emitters only." 3, 2, 1, mark. Every Marine activated their modified equipment simultaneously. Beams of intense ultraviolet light cut through the darkness, bathing the Vrex patrol in radiation invisible to human eyes, but apparently excruciating to the aliens. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Vrex convulsed, their exoskeletons flashing chaotic patterns of color as they emitted high-pitched, keening sounds that made Alina's teeth ache. They dropped their equipment, limbs contorting in what could only be agony, before collapsing to the ground in twisted heaps. "It works," Okafor said, barely concealing his satisfaction. "They're completely incapacitated." Alina approached one of the fallen aliens cautiously, her UV emitter still trained on its twitching form. Up close, the Vrex was even more alien. Its exoskeleton, not a single piece as she had first thought, but thousands of interconnected plates that rippled with color even in its incapacitated state. "Secure them," she ordered. "I want one for study, but our priority is the survivors." The team moved deeper into the ruins, following the faint life signs detected by their scanners. Twice more they encountered Vrex patrols, and twice more the UV weapons proved devastatingly effective. The aliens had no defense against this specific vulnerability, a weakness they had perhaps never needed to evolve against in their home environment. Finally, they'd reached what remained of the colony's central administration building. Beneath it, according to the schematics, lay the main emergency bunker. "Life signs are stronger here," Miyazaki confirmed. "Definitely human. At least 20, maybe more." Alina nodded to the demolition specialist. "Clear us a path, quietly if possible." It took 10 minutes of careful work to create an opening into the sublevels without causing a collapse. As they descended into the darkness, Alina activated the non-UV light on her helmet. "This is Commander Elena Reyes of the UES Thunderbolt," she called out. "We're here to extract survivors. If anyone can hear me, please respond." Silence stretched for several seconds, then a voice called back, wary, exhausted, but unmistakably human. "How do we know you're really human?" Elena smiled grimly. "A fair question. I'm going to approach alone, unarmed. My team will stay back." Despite Okafor's protests, Elena removed her helmet and set down her weapon, stepping forward into the gloom of the bunker. As her eyes adjusted, she made out figures huddled in the far corner. Men, women, and most heartbreakingly, children, their faces gaunt with hunger and fear. A man stepped forward, a makeshift weapon clutched in his trembling hands. His lab coat, once white, was now stained with blood and grime. The name tag identified him as Dr. Elias Chen, the governor's brother. "The Vrex," he said, his voice hoarse. "They came for our research. They took Marcus. Took his body after they killed him. They're taking all the bodies." Elena approached slowly, hands raised. "We know, and we found a way to fight them. But right now, we need to get you all to safety." Dr. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "There were thousands of us. We're all that's left. Then we make sure you survive, Elena said firmly. And we make sure the Vrex pay for what they've done. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly, too smoothly. As the last of the survivors were being loaded onto the dropship, Elena's comm crackled to life. "Commander," Lieutenant Rodriguez's urgent voice came through. "The Vrex ships are moving. They've detected us." Elena cursed under her breath. How long until they're in position to attack? Minutes, maybe less. Their ground forces are already converging on your position. She turned to Okafor. "Get these people out of here. Take the dropship and return to the Thunderbolt." The Marine chief frowned. "And you?" Elena checked her modified weapon. "Someone needs to trigger the colony's automated defenses manually." The Vrex disabled them, but didn't destroy them. "If I can get to the control center and bring the UV grid back online, we can buy the Thunderbolt time to escape." "That's a suicide mission, Commander." "Maybe," Elena acknowledged. "But 30 lives against one isn't a difficult equation, Chief." Before he could protest further, Elena turned to Dr. Chen. "Your research, the adaptation genetics. Is there anything you can tell me that might help us fight them?" Chen hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We were close to a breakthrough. Not just adapting humans to new environments, but accelerating the adaptation process itself, making it responsive, immediate. The Vrex must have realized what we were creating, a way for humans to adapt in real time to any threat. That's why they came," Elena realized. "Not just for our genetic material, but to stop us from developing a countermeasure against them." "Commander," Rodriguez's voice came through again. "You need to move now." Elena made her decision. "Chief, get these people to the ship. Dr. Chen, I need the access codes for the defense grid." As the dropship lifted off with its precious cargo of survivors, Elena raced through the ruins toward the colony's backup power core. If she could bring it online, the automated UV sterilization grid, designed to prevent alien biological contaminants, would flood the entire colony with the one thing the Vrex couldn't withstand. She reached the power core just as the first Vrex ground forces entered the complex. Her UV emitter kept them at bay, but she knew it was only temporary. Their numbers were too great, and her power cells wouldn't last forever. "Rodriguez," she called through the comm as she worked frantically at the controls. "Status of the Thunderbolt. Ready to jump as soon as the dropship docks, Commander. But we're not leaving without you." Elena smiled grimly as she input the final sequence. "Sometimes the only way to win is to ensure the enemy loses more than you do. Tell Earth everything we've learned. The Vrex have a weakness. Exploit it." The power core hummed to life beneath her hands. Throughout the colony, UV emitters designed to sterilize the entire settlement in case of biological contamination began powering up. Outside, the Vrex forces froze as the first waves of ultraviolet radiation washed over them. Their keening cries rose in a terrible chorus as more and more of the aliens fell, their exoskeletons flashing violent patterns of color in their death throes. Elena watched through the control room's view screen as the Vrex ships in orbit began to turn, attempting to flee from what they now realized was happening. But it was too late. The Thunderbolt emerged from behind the planet's moon, its modified communication arrays projecting focused beams of ultraviolet radiation that cut through the alien vessels like scalpels through flesh. "Commander," Rodriguez's voice came through, thick with emotion. "The dropship is docked. We can still extract you." Elena looked at the power core readings. The UV grid was at maximum capacity, but it wouldn't last, not without someone to maintain it, to prevent the Vrex from disabling it again. "Negative, Lieutenant. I'm needed here." She watched as another Vrex ship writhed under the Thunderbolt's attack. "Besides, I think I've found my calling." Her fingers flew across the console, locking in the commands that would keep the grid active as long as possible. Through the view screen, she could see more Vrex ground forces approaching, moving more cautiously now, carrying what appeared to be shielding equipment. They were adapting. Of course they were. That's what intelligent species did. But so did humans, and humanity now knew the Vrex's weakness. "Jump now, Lieutenant," she ordered. "That's a direct command. Get those survivors and that information back to Earth." There was a pause, then, "Understood, Commander. It's been an honor." Elena watched as the Thunderbolt vanished in a flash of light, jumping back toward Earth with its precious cargo of survivors and even more precious intelligence about their enemy. She turned back to the console, preparing for her last stand. The Vrex would take this colony. They might even take her. But they would learn that humans didn't surrender easily, that each yard of ground would cost them dearly. And when Earth's fleet returned, and they would return, she was certain of it, the Vrex would face not just scattered colonists, but the full might of humanity united against a common threat. As the first Vrex breached the control room, their bodies protected by hastily constructed shields, Elena activated the final failsafe, the colony's reactor overload. She had minutes, perhaps seconds. "You wanted to study human adaptation," she told the advancing aliens, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Here's a lesson for you. We adapt fastest when our backs are against the wall." She stood tall as they surrounded her, these harvesters who had seen humans as nothing more than specimens to be collected. Whatever happened next, Elena knew the real victory was already secured. Earth would be ready. Humanity would survive. And the Vrex would learn why. Throughout human history, those who had underestimated humanity's resolve had invariably found themselves on the wrong side of history. Their own adaptations too little, too late against a species forged in the crucible of survival. As the reactor countdown reached 0, Elena closed her eyes and thought of Earth, the planet she would never see again, but had given everything to protect. The light that engulfed her wasn't the darkness of defeat, but the brilliant flash of defiance. Humanity's response to the silent invasion had been unleashed in steel and fire, and it was only the beginning.